I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, August the 15th, brought to you in part by the National Beef Wire, with a spotlight today on Verlech Angus out of Geddes, South Dakota. It's brought to you by IMI Global, and please go check that out at nationalbeefwire.com on channel 5003. Limit up, a little late. Your feeder cattle contracts were limit up on the nearby August as far as it could go on extended limits there, and the rest of them were up big time too. But and your fat cattle or live cattle contracts were also up big early, but the nearbys kind of faded back out and lost even more ground. But even on the big gains that we saw on Wednesday on the feeder cattle, it does not do a whole lot really for the trade. The only guys that made any money were some guys that were just speculating, jumped in there because they thought they had gone down too far too fast. And good for them. I'm glad they jumped in there and got some guys that bought some calls and were able to add value to those with the big jump in there. And that's what it's all about. If you see something that ain't right, get in there and try to fix it, and all that does help try to fix it. But I tell you what, the happenings of this week, starting out with that fire at Tyson Fresh Meats there in Holcomb, Kansas, it's just really put a sour taste in everyone's mouth. The way that these packers have come in here and profiteered off of this problem that you had. I hate to call it a disaster. It wasn't a disaster. One little room in the packing house caught on fire. Big deal. You even had some statements come out by the fire chief that said, it was pretty localized. Just a simple fire is what he put it in there. I'm sure there was some smoke damage and different things like that, but big companies like that are making billions of dollars and had been making $250, $300 a head, times 6,000 every day for the last forever. Yeah, big deal. They go in there, they hire people, they get them in there from wherever they got to get them, and they get it fixed, and they go right back to trucking. But to watch them take advantage of the situation and putting these huge monster profits on. You look at that between what your fat cattle prices, and we've started to trade a little bit already this week. You look and see how much those have lost compared to how much your box beef cutout values have gained just in the first 3 days of this week. Almost a $200 a head additional profit. So now they're looking at $500, $600 a head profit on here. You think they're not enjoying that? And then Tyson actually come out and made a statement and said, we're trying to get it fixed as quick as we can. But don't you guys think this is going to be an easy deal? It was like the opposite of the fire chief. Fire chief said simple fire. Tyson exec says, oh, this is a bad situation. It's going to be months, not weeks, before we can fix this. And we've got some serious damage in here in the box making room. They think that probably it got started with they were doing some repairs there, and a welding spark got into some cardboard and set it on fire. If they really wanted to, they could probably tarp off that area and get things going back a lot quicker, but they sure didn't want to make it sound like it was going to happen too soon there, because how could things get any better the way it is? And another thing that almost irked me, and I don't know if you guys saw it too, but there was a local news story there out of Garden City, or a local TV station there that did a story on the whole situation, and it put Tyson Fresh Meats in the most positive light that you could possibly put it in. Pillars of the community, biggest employers in the area. Yes. They have to live up to union contracts whether they want to or not. They rely on those people to make those huge profits every day. It didn't say anything about them taking advantage of the situation. But that's what you're listening to this for, because you can hear that. But I tell you what, it's kind of like some of us guys. If you had a girlfriend that was crazy about you sometime in your life, and you you didn't treat her the best, you finally at some point go too far, and then you can't get them back anymore, or they don't trust you anymore. That's kind of what these packers have done to your cattle producers. You can wool us around every week. You can spit on us, kick dirt on us, do all this. But when this comes up and you just dog pile on, you're making big profits already, and just can't wait to take advantage of this situation, and not only take advantage of the guys you're buying the cattle off of, but also the guys that are buying the meat, taking just as much advantage of them. There's been no shortage of meat. They probably had to throw out what they had in the cooler there at Holcomb there because of smoke damage or what have you. I'm not sure what they did with that, whether they just dumped it out or were able to render it, or maybe they make Impossible Burgers out of it. Who knows what they do with it. But there's no shortage. It's the opposite. We've got a surplus of cattle, and we've got a surplus of meat. And somehow through that packer psychology, they've convinced these meat buyers that they've really got to jump in there. We've had really good volume on sharply higher prices all week long here. And I think you just fooled me once, fooled me twice, fool me every day or every week for 52 weeks a year for the last 25 years. But finally, when you do this, it's just getting to the point where guys are sending me messages. What can we do? I don't know what you do. How can you do it? You've got a monopolized industry here. You've got one Cattlemen's Association, RCAF, that has filed lawsuit against them for the very things that they're doing this week, for the collusion, for the unfair trade practices. For the lying, the cheating, the fraud, the everything that goes along with. The best thing I know to do is throw in with the guys. If you've got some documented proof of what's been happening to you, whether it be retaliation, packer retaliation is the worst thing. I heard guys say, well, let's just pool our money together and build a packing house. You think that they would let you live? Get real. It would get mafia time immediately. You talk about retaliation. Anybody that sent their cattle to the other plant, retaliation. Anybody that was doing business buying meat, retaliation on the other end. If you owned a packing plant and you tried to go into an auction facility where they sold fat cattle and buy a few, it would be amazing how much they'd be able to pay. If you ever watched a new cow buyer come into a packer cow sale, packer cow sales are boring for the most part. You have 3 or 4 guys, a ring man and an auctioneer and a clerk, and you just kind of sit there and watch it go and watch it go, and they all get along great. But let one guy come in and stir the pot, and he can mess it up, and it's amazing what those cows can bring whenever you need them to. The saddest thing that I heard today, I got a ton of responses. I appreciate you guys sharing that video. I know I kind of get on a rant once in a while, and you guys probably have to fast forward through it sometimes, but I got a lot of comments and a lot of messages on Wednesday all day long. The saddest one that I heard from a guy that had sent me several things going on in his part of the world, and I always love it when people send me, tell me about a set of cattle they sold, tell me about the flood damages, tell me about the crops in their area, the gains on their cattle, whatever it is. That's how I put information together to share it with everybody. But the saddest thing that I heard, and I did hear several people that were very frustrated, some people that are in some financial woes, Some people that are scared about losing the family farm, losing the feedlot that they've been trying to build equity in for decades. But the saddest thing that I heard is one producer there, and I don't know a whole lot about his operation, but from the pictures that he sent, it looks like that he does some row cropping. He does some runs cattle, got cows and calves of his own, retains ownership, feeds those cattle and sells them. And he told me, he said, not doing this to my boys. If he says he's never encouraged his kids to get into the business, and he says I'm going to more than not encourage them now. He says I'm not going to allow it. He says when I'm done, this place is done. Now, isn't that something? That tells you what these packers have done to the moods, to the self-esteem, to the confidence in the industry that they're trying to make a living and feed their family in. There's nothing really you can do to them if you're in that business, and it trickles down. I don't care if you're picking baby calves, day-old baby calves up at dairies and trying to get them fed up and weaned to where you can sell them. That packer deal trickles down to you. It starts at the top and it trickles down. But let's talk about the board. For Wednesday, August live cattle futures down 35 cents to settle at $100.20. October was down quite a bit, down 75 cents. Now we're just at 98.50 on your October live cattle contract. So I guess if the guys get a buck and they've got a little basis, whenever the time gets here, they'll be tickled with that. They don't care really what the price is, what the market position is. The problem is everybody down from there, your yearling sellers, your backgrounders, your cow-calf guys, they need that price. They're not just trading money and looking at a basis. They need that. You talk to most guys that are raising cows and calves or running yearlings, and they need $1,000 a head out of their calves to make things work, to pay their bills for the year. They're hoping that the steers bring a little more and the heifers get close to make $1,000 a head for a pair every year. Your other guys are looking for $1,500 or something like that. They need the position. They need the money. They're not just trading out money. It's not all borrowed, not always. But anyway, you look at that. Your out fronts were higher on your live cattle after you went past October. Now look at your feeder cattle. I told you they were crazy high. August feeder cattle contract. There was no need for the feeder cattle to ever go down a bit. They went down the limit move, which was 4.5 the first day, and then nearly limit on the expanded limits on Tuesday. Wednesday, your August was up $6.75, which is the most it can go up. Why did it go up? Well, we're getting close to the end of the month, and your index levels are not that low yet, because you've still got order buyers and feedlots out there that are paying a reasonable price for these cattle because they don't want to tick off the guys that are raising them for them. And that's the only reason it went up. It went up, and then your computers rolled it up just like they've been rolling it down, and then the rest of your months kind of followed suit, but not nearly as sharply. But August feeder cattle up 675 at 134.47. Real-time index is at 138.42, and it's a day ahead of your CME index, which is still almost 140. So yeah, your August feeder cattle, which is cash settled, like I told you about Lee Richmond's idea to make cash settlement in your live cattle, we're going to have to start getting that thing right. You don't want to get too far away from it. You may not be able to make it mesh together by the time it needs to here as that August contract matures. September up 562 at 132.82. Look at your grains a little bit. December corn continues to plummet from that bearish crop report that come out on Monday. December corn down 6 1/4 on Wednesday at 370 1/4 now, and your November beans are just jostling back and forth. They were up on Tuesday, down on Wednesday, down 11 cents at 878 even. Your stock market was down 800 points because we had some analysts that come out and say that we're looking at recession. I don't know, it seems like our consumer confidence and everything's been going skyrocket high, but Everybody's trying to do things to make it look like Trump's not doing a good job, and they're trying to do whatever they can to boost some of these nuts that they got running on the Democratic side. And I tell you what, every single one of them appears to be a joke. But let's look at your fat cattle trade. We did have a little bit of trade on Wednesday coming out. I guarantee you, these packers need cattle. I've had a guy tell me, of course, Tyson, they're supposed to be bombarded, backed up with all these cattle because they lost that plant at Holcomb where it's dark going to be for a while. Talked to a guy in Iowa, and he had a friend that sold cattle a week ago for a 2 to 3 week delivery. He's already shipped the cattle. They need the cattle. Tyson needs the cattle, and they lost a plant. All the other plants needed a cattle. Cargill come out on Tuesday morning trying to get some cattle bought. Yeah, they want to buy them a ton lower too, like the rest of them, but they got to have something hanging in there besides the hooks. They've got to get some cattle in there. Anytime you see packers getting aggressive before Thursday, they need cattle, and they needed cattle this week on a sharply lower market. And what do you know? They got to take advantage of both. They got the cattle they needed, and they got the sharply lower market. They started selling cattle in the Southern Plains. Consolidated beef producers started selling them. Not sure why they dove so early, probably because of the basis, but selling cattle in the Southern Plains on Wednesday at 105, $5 lower from that disappointing 110 that we had a week ago, which should have been 12 or 13. Iowa sold a handful of cattle. This is the first time the Southern Plains has sold significant cattle before the Northern Plains in a long time. Iowa, and it's all due to that plant that's in the Southern Plains. Iowa, 1,300 head there, 106 live, and 170 to 172, so that'd be roughly $7 lower live and $10 lower on a dress basis. Just a few in Nebraska at 170. Didn't hear anything in Kansas. Have heard stories, of course you hear stories all the time, but truckers are hearing that anytime they're passing through Kansas, going north or south, there's cattle that can be hauled, and they're paying a pretty handsome price to get them together, either to Amarillo or to take them up to Joslin, Illinois, or somewhere to get those cattle that have already been spoken for, and we're planning on going to Holcomb, Kansas, to get them somewhere else. But maybe it'll be a good deal for them. Needs to be a good deal for somebody. But you look at that 105, $5 lower, and we're $10 lower in the meat. We're going to get down to cow price here before long. Your cow bids are about 125 in the meat, and they've only lost a few dollars this week. It hasn't been sharply lower. Of course, we didn't lose a cow plant. We lost a steer and heifer plant. But your cutter cow cutouts at 175, and so that gives you about $50 a hundredweight to work those old cow carcasses and bone all that stuff out, and all that laborious thing that they do with those cow carcasses, which have, there's a lot of trim on them, there's this, there's that, there's a lot of work to breaking down a cow carcass. Not so much on a steer and heifer, but they're getting $60 a hundred to cut that stuff up. Let's talk about your box beef cutout values. They're soaring higher again as these packers lie to these meat purchasers and telling them that they're not going to be able to get orders, so they better get them in at sharply higher prices. Wow. Choice cuts on Wednesday afternoon, $230, $234, up $5.98. Selects at $205.92, up $5.34. Monster Choice Select Spread, big movement again. Your slaughter, amazingly, is staying really tight up there. This is not uncommon change in the slaughter from whenever all the plants were running at 90% efficiency. But 347,000 head of cattle estimated to be harvested so far through Wednesday. That's just 8,000 off. That's for the week. We're just 8,000 off of last week, and just 7,000 off of the same time a year ago for the week, for 3 days. So, it's just a big farce. But But let's look at some of your other things that are going on. Your feeder cattle markets, your real-time index on Cattle Market Central, late in the day on Wednesday, 138.42, down $1.05, and it's been dropping like a rock. But like I said, your spot feeder cattle contracts had to get back up there close because they've got to come to settlement here before too long. Thursday, or for Wednesday, OKC West, El Reno, Oklahoma, had 3,500 head. About 1,000 of those or so were calves on Tuesday, but then about 2,600 head of yearlings on Wednesday there. And yeah, it was tough. It may not have been quite as tough as what everybody feared, but feeder steers $4 to $6 lower, feeder heifers $6 to $8 lower. Of course, your calves were sharply lower on Tuesday. You look at this market report on Cattle Market Central here, and I will give some credit to the market reporters there. Sometimes it's not fun to call a market that much lower, but I think they absolutely nailed it if you look at the weighted averages on the best tested weights there. But on 7-weight steers, 390 head of those averaged 745 at 133.45. That was $5 lower on the weighted average. 623 out of 8-weight steers averaged 856 at 128.28. That was $5 lower. Look at your heifers, 330 head of those in the 7-weight category averaged 726 at 124.51. That was $7 lower, and they called it about that. And then almost 500 head of 8-weight heifers averaged 830 at 120.27, straight up $4 lower than the previous week. A lot of your other sales, of course, OKC West, your biggest sale in the country. So a lot of your other sales just backed off and just didn't even want a sale. Some of them had a few sales. Winter Livestock Dodge said he had 600 head. Of course, it wasn't any good either. One place they did have a pretty good sale and give us our best individual quotes was Sterling Livestock Commission in Sterling, Colorado. 75 head of 807-pound steers bring 147, and 78 head of 919-pound steers bring 143 on Wednesday. That's your feeder flash for Thursday.